Hello, I'd like to welcome you to this podcast entitled The Wright Experience. I'm Dr. William T. Wright Jr., the founder and host of this show. For a year now, we've been trying to bring you the very best content that we can find through some amazing leaders from all across the United States. As time continues, it is the mission that I have in front of me to continue to bring you the very best content that I can find. And tonight is certainly no exception. I'm committed to seeking the very best leaders that we can find to bring to you. Please don't hesitate to contact me and let me know who you would like to see on this show. By all means, those of you that are viewing us via Facebook Live, please continue to click like and comment, ask questions, and we'll try to respond to those as we can. Also, those of you that are viewing us via YouTube, we'd love for you to click like, comment, and most importantly, that subscribe button. Tonight is episode 46 of The Wright Experience. My guest tonight served as a superintendent in the state of North Carolina in districts both small and large, and has also served as a statewide educational leader. Although I had heard of his work and followed his career closely, we officially met a couple of months ago during a sponsored event for superintendents. I immediately felt comfortable engaging in a conversation about leadership that was very beneficial to me for sure. I'm excited tonight to have him on the podcast. My guest tonight is Dr. Bill Harrison. Dr. Bill Harrison has been an educator in the public schools of North Carolina since 1974. He has been an elementary school teacher. He served as a principal at the elementary and high school levels. He's worked as an associate superintendent for curriculum and instruction, and he spent 22 years as a local superintendent. I'm going to repeat that. He spent 22 years as a local superintendent. From 2009 to 2013, he chaired the State Board of Education and served as Governor Beverly Perdue's Senior Advisor for Education Transformation and as a member of her cabinet. Since retiring from the Alamance-Burlington school system in 2018, he has been serving as an instructor for the North Carolina State University MSA program and as a senior education advisor with Participate Learning. 12 of his years as superintendent were in Cumberland County, North Carolina, and he was a superintendent in Hoke County Schools when the Leandro suit was filed. He grew up in Levittown, Pennsylvania, and attended Methodist College in Fayetteville, and he began his teaching career in the school in which he did his student teaching in the at then Fayetteville City Schools. He received his MAED and EDS from East Carolina University and his EDD from Vanderbilt University. And at this time, I'd like to welcome my good friend, Dr. Bill Harrison. Welcome to the Wright Experience, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. It's great to be with you, and I look forward to the conversation. Look forward to learning. I learn every conversation I have with a superintendent.
Yes, sir. It is a pleasure to have you here, and certainly you've had and continue to have an amazing career. And I can't tell you how much I enjoyed that conversation on the golf cart that day, just picking your brain about good leadership and best practices moving forward. So I'm excited to bring you to my audience. And I just wanted you to know before we get started now, as you notice, I have on a black and orange tie tonight. There's a reason for that, Dr. Harrison. My team is playing in the Super Bowl, and I hope that we have the same success that your Eagles had a few years ago as the underdog, and we can pull this thing off. So.
Yeah, my wife and I have become Bengals fans the last couple of weeks. It's been an exciting run here in the playoffs. So yeah, we'll be pulling for the Bengals.
I do appreciate that. I sure do. Well, Dr. Harrison, I'd like to get right into the questions tonight. Tell us about the current work that you're doing to continue to mentor and grow leaders.
Well, I've been working with the North Carolina State Leadership Academies, NELA. Serving as what they're referring to as a school system liaison. I reach out to the superintendents in our partner schools and talk with them about enrolling their students in our program, supporting the students and supporting the superintendents in the schools as well. I'm also doing a little bit of teaching in that program, and I'm mentoring, coaching two of our interns. One of the one of the highlights of the NC State program is the internship requirement, and each of the interns, it's a full-time internship. It's part of the Principal Fellows program now, and getting to coach two young aspiring principals has just been a lot of fun and exciting. So that's what I'm doing with NC State. I've been working with Participate Learning. I did as a superintendent. We were partners of theirs. I'm a believer in what they do. They bring international teachers to our schools. They support dual language programs, and they also have what they refer to as a global leaders program that really brings the world to all schools and doesn't require international teachers. So I've doing the same thing. I get out and visit schools and work with programs a little bit. I'm kind of on the sidelines, but that's some work I really believe in. Doing a little bit of work with Dr. Shirley Prince and NC Papa. I teach a couple of cohorts in the DLP program. Actually going to start one of those in March, and I'm coaching the superintendent too, and that kind of keeps my fingers in the pot without having to deal with all the pressure that you guys have to deal with.
It is certainly a different world, but we still need folks like yourself that understand the work that we do and can help mentor and coach and lead our best and brightest leaders. There's no work any more important than making sure that our folks have the tools that they need and the resources that they need to be successful. So thank you for continuing to invest in our educators. We appreciate that.
Yeah, well, before we get started, let me say thank you to you and to all of your colleagues, our principals, your central services colleagues, our teachers, our custodians, our bus drivers, all of the folks that are out there doing the real work. I left pre-COVID, and I've just been absolutely amazed at the incredible leadership that I've seen coming from the superintendent level down, and boards of education have been doing well for the most part.
Sure.
But my hat is certainly off to you and the way you've navigated these waters that we've never ever seen before. So thank you.
Yes, sir. We've developed a slogan in our district just this year. We call it "Leading in Uncharted Waters." So that's where we are right now.
Yep.
So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Dr. Harrison, you served as a superintendent for many years. I think we read 22 years. During those years, in my opinion, the superintendent is a little bit different than it is right now. So what do you see as the major differences between the time that you served and leading school districts in 2022 and beyond?
As you said earlier, I left in 2018, which was only 4 years ago. But when we think about what's been happening in the world the last 4 years, that's almost a lifetime ago. And the job was difficult when I was doing it. And I think every generation has its challenges and the issues that it has to face. But what you guys are facing right now is something we never really could have dreamed of, and there's certainly no way we could have prepared for it. But a couple of big changes that I've seen, social media, and social media was here. I left the superintendency in 2009 to go work in Raleigh and did that until 2013. Then I became a superintendent again in 2014. And the difference between 2009 when I left and 2014 when I came back into it was just incredible. And social media is ubiquitous. Something happens in school, the student texts a parent, next thing you know, it's on Facebook. Next thing you know, the superintendent's getting a call from board members. Because some people believe if it's on Facebook, it's real. So I think that's been an issue. The other big change has been the involvement of the General Assembly in education. And we often think in terms of the General Assembly as funding, They're certainly not funding it to the level that they were 10 years ago. But there's been substantive legislation that hasn't had, in my opinion, an adverse impact on our traditional public schools. And I'm a believer in choice, but I think the best choice is the traditional public school setting. I think we can so demonstrate innovation within the traditional public school setting. And I think we can offer choices within the traditional public school setting. So 1995 is when the charter school law passed. And so before 1995, we had no charter schools in this state. They lifted the cap at 100 a couple years ago. Now, last I read, we have over 200 charter schools in the state of North Carolina. I think the opportunity scholarships, to me, is one of the worst pieces of legislation that's ever come out of Raleigh. Sending public dollars to private schools. Again, I don't have any problem with parents choosing to send their child to private schools, but I do have problems with us funding it with tax dollars. And primarily because there's no transparency, there's no accountability, and there's not necessarily access to all. And I think those are the three tenets of public education. So with public funding, if you're going to take everybody, if you're going to be transparent, and you're going to be accountable, well, then maybe I'll talk with you. But otherwise, not going to do that. And then again, the A through F grading. Again, some of the substantive legislation that has come out has hurt us. The other big change, and this is the divisiveness. I can remember talking with, before I left the state board, Representative Craig Horn from Union County. He stepped down last year, and we were sitting in his office. I worked for a Democratic governor. He's a Republican, and we had a great conversation. And he said, "Bill, what's it going to take for us to bring people together working towards a common goal?" I said, "Well, first of all, we need to agree on a common goal. But then we simply need to be able to talk with one another and respect one another." I said, we could have a Democrat and a Republican sitting in this office. One would say it's raining. The other would say, no, it's not. And neither one would go outside to check. And it's gotten much worse since then, that people are making decisions solely based on political party or political affiliation. So I think that's an issue and gets in the way of us making the progress we need to. And then, of course, as we've already said, the pandemic and COVID-19 and what that has done to us. So I think those, and we've got, and then the fact that kids have been out of in an unusual setting for going on 2 years now. So we've got our I guess it's our second graders, William, that really haven't been in school as we used to know school.
Yes,
and I think that some of the school systems like yours that have strong leadership are going to come out of the pandemic stronger. Some of the systems that don't have strong leadership, it's going to take them a long time to catch up if they ever do. So again, I've been watching closely and again, have been so proud of the leadership that our superintendents have been providing. But I think pandemic, social media, divisiveness, and the whole choice issue. I think that's probably
that's amazing stuff. And speaking of divisiveness, during the time that you served as a statewide instructional leader, there seemed to be, in my opinion, more of an interest in collaborating with school districts to ensure the students get what they need than there appears to be right now at times. And you've already touched on this, but my question is, do you agree with that statement? And then what do we need to do to get back to true collaboration?
I think we need to sit. I think it gets back to respect. I think we need to respect one another. And just because I disagree with you, that doesn't mean I'm right and you're wrong. Just because I disagree with you, that doesn't make me any less intelligent than you. And one of the things that I've learned over time is the truth is usually in the middle.
That's right.
And what I'm watching out there are people on both sides of the political spectrum making a lot of noise. So you got 10% on the left, 10% on the right. They're out there hollering. And the 80%, 85% in the middle is somewhere in between. And so, but the noise drowns everything out. So I think we need to be able to sit down and have some conversations. And we've not watched, we've watched that becoming increasingly difficult or increasingly unlikely to occur. We look at how Congress is acting, look at how the General Assembly is acting, looking how local county commissioners may be acting, looking how boards are reacting. And I think I had everywhere I've been, we had Democrats on the board, we had Republicans on the board, and we had board members disagreeing about different things, but it was never based on political party or partisan politics. It was simply, and you would see a split board, but it wouldn't be split along party lines. It was split along thoughts and opinions about how we do the work that we do. And I'm afraid as we're watching politics become more and more part of this, that I'm afraid we're beginning to see people run for the Board of Education for the wrong reason. And we've always had people run for the board for the wrong reasons. But I think we're having more and more of that now than we ever had before. So it's a whole lot easier said than done, but we've got to find a way to talk and communicate. Any organization, when you have difficulties in your school system, and then you get to the root cause, it's typically a communication issue. Somebody misunderstood something and didn't ask. So if we can't communicate, we don't have a whole lot of hope. I'm optimistic. Yes, I think my teaching at NC State, we got bright young people going into it. I noticed this before I left the superintendency, that our teachers coming out are better prepared than ever before. I mean, our teachers were so much brighter, so much better prepared than I was back in 1974. When you said that, it made me cringe a little bit. I said, God, no, this has been around for a long time. But so yeah, I think we've got bright folks out there, and I think the future is bright. And I think I've watched a lot of cycles in the years that I've been involved in public schools in North Carolina. I'm afraid we've been on kind of a down cycle for a little bit longer than usual, but I'm optimistic we're going to shift that.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And that's we got to be able to talk in order to move forward. That's so very true. School districts across our state and nation, Dr. Harrison, are having problems recruiting and retaining quality personnel. And it used to be in pockets, but now it seems to be affecting school districts everywhere and at every phase of the school district operation business, if you will. This is matriculated all across everywhere. And so what steps need to be taken to reverse this trend, in your opinion?
I think we need to start with appreciating and valuing our teachers.
Yes, sir.
We're too quick to criticize. They need to know they're important and they're valuable. Compensation is a big issue. I mean, you've got young people going to college, borrowing a lot of money to go to college, and then they get a job that's going to result in them having to spend 25 years paying off those loans. So I think the compensation needs to be better. Administrative support is so important. I think other than salary, people that go into education for the most part have an idea what their salaries might be. I don't know that they don't expect it to increase, or do expect it to increase a little bit more rapidly than it does. But one of the main reasons that people leave is lack of administrative support. And what does that mean? So how do we coach? How do we support teachers? How do we grow teachers? And I think that, the teacher working conditions survey is a great instrument. And I was actually on the Teaching Standards Commission when that was formed, when that was developed, and that was piloted. And so I use that as a superintendent, and it's supposed to be part of the principal evaluation process. Is, what are we going to do to better support those? But I think that we need to, you can tell what somebody values by looking at their checkbook. And so I think if we look at the checkbook of the General Assembly, we can see what they value, and they need to show the teachers mean something to them.
Sir, yes, sir. So important. Everybody wants to be appreciated and loved and respected. That there's no question about that. No question about that.
Yeah.
Dr. Harrison, tell us about some of your proudest moments during your time serving as superintendent.
I think it's pride in the accomplishments of those I served.
Yes, sir.
I think about some of the kids I had an opportunity to teach when I was a teacher. I think about some of the kids that I was their principal at the elementary level, and when I was in high school, and when I walk downtown and I see 50-year-olds that were kids I had as a high school principal, that makes me proud. I also I tell aspiring leaders that our job is as much about developing adults as it is about developing young people. And so I think as a superintendent, I've had my last count was about 35 of those that I had hired into essential service position or assistant or associate superintendent's position have gone on to be superintendents. So, I had some coaches and mentors that supported me and enabled me to get wherever it was that I had gotten. And I think I have an obligation to pay that forward. So, I think some of the folks, I think then the other thing is all the things that we did in the school system in terms of innovation were ideas that came from teachers. And then I think, the North Carolina Virtual Public School started in 1998 as the Web Academy in Cumberland County. And that started when a principal and a media coordinator came in my office and said they want to teach something online. And so we did, and that grew. And I think it was in 2007 was when the state came in and kind of took that over. And so some of the early leaders in the North Carolina Virtual Public School were former Cumberland County teachers that started that program, and some are still there. So I think that just watching those with whom you work grow and develop and innovate. And I think I always felt my job was to really serve those that with whom I work and to listen and to support. And I always felt that if I was the smartest person in the room, we had problems. So I tried to surround myself with bright people that were going to do some good things. I think we did some neat stuff around professional development in Cumberland County. We were having PLCs before the DeFores made it sexy, and but we really worked at developing an embedded professional development program that I think has carried on well past me. But that was developed collaboratively by a bunch of teachers that we brought together. And so, I guess, William, was fortunate. 22 years as a superintendent, I got to work with good people, and I worked with good boards. The boards were supportive. They believed in innovation. They trusted me with what they sometimes might have thought were my crazy ideas. They would have a couple that would get off the chain every now and then, but I can't complain at all.
That's a great thing. It sure is. And you've done some amazing work. And although we officially met just a few months ago, I've been admiring and watching your career. It's been an amazing one at that. So thank you for your work. If a brand new leader, Dr. Harrison, in their first leadership role, contacted you for some sound advice, and they were not a North Carolina State University student, what are some things you'd tell them?
I would tell them to keep their eye on the target. It's about students. It's about student achievement, but it's about the whole child as well, that we're here to serve kids. And the people that do the real work are the teachers in the classroom. At the end of the day, it comes down to a competent, caring teacher working with children. Then at the end of the day, it takes a good principal to recruit, select, develop, and retain quality teachers. And the job of those of us who work centrally is to support that principal who supports that teacher who takes care of those kids. So make sure that you never forget it's about the kids. Keep your eye on that target. Secondly, is check your ego at the door. It's not about you. You're going to get your feelings hurt. And when you get your feelings hurt, you simply suck it up and move on. And also as a leader, you're going to hurt the feelings of others. And when you do that, if it wasn't a mistake, you make amends and move on. That you own it. And I think that sometimes leaders, I don't know where I read it, but they said a bureaucrat, a leader in a bureaucratic organization sucks up the praise and passes down the blame. Well, what a true leader does is accept responsibility and passes out the credit and passes out the praise. So remember that it's not about you. Check that ego at the door. We talked a little bit about school boards and school boards. We report to the school board while we work for the kids. And, board members have to be are concerned about getting elected. I wish they weren't, but they are. And so they're going to be responsive. And so I think you need to establish a relationship with your board that as clearly as possible, defines roles and responsibilities, and recognizing that sometimes they're going to step across that line. And how do you deal with that? Again, I think it's communication and it's trust. And then the other thing, and this kind of goes back to keep your eye on the target, is be values driven. What hill are you going to die on? Don't fight every little battle, but if it's something that compromises your integrity, compromises your values, well, then you go to battle over that one. So I think the other thing is take care of yourself. And the superintendent that I'm coaching, every time I talk with the individual, I said, don't do anything related to the school system this weekend. I said, have your phone on in case somebody calls, but on your own, don't do anything. And easier said than done. I was not very good at that. But I think now, particularly since the pressure is so great, I think that's we need to make sure we take care of ourselves. And I think going back to your very first question about changes, and I think that transparent accountability. When I was a teacher, we didn't have high stakes testing, so everybody assumed I was a good teacher. When I was a principal, we just were beginning the testing program, but it wasn't high stakes as it was, right, as it has become. And so that's a lot of pressure. on teachers, on principals, and on superintendents.
So, Dr. Harrison, along kind of that same line, but on the other end of the scale, so to speak, more and more superintendents are leaving the profession with all the pressure that we just talked about. And so at the rate we're going, the average tenure for a superintendent, I think nationwide is around 3 years. But at the rate we're going, there might even be a decrease in that number if it continues as it has been. So first of all, why do you think that is that, superintendents are leaving the profession, and then what can be done to increase longevity in your opinion? After all, you're an example that folks can last a long time.
But as I said, 4 years ago seems like light years ago,
Yes,
and I
sir.
think it's a pressure-packed position. I think COVID has increased that pressure. I think that the divisiveness in the community, we're having fights over masks. We're having fights over books. It's just, and no one can understand what a superintendent deals with that hasn't been a superintendent. And I can remember when I would, second guess my superintendent when I was a assistant superintendent, and he would always tell me, he says, "Bill, you don't understand. You won't understand until you're sitting in this seat." And I think the second day I was sitting in that superintendent seat is when I realized that. And so even I, William, with what has gone on since March of 2020, I can't really grasp what you guys are dealing with. I can kind of sense it because I've been there, but the biggest controversy I had was over a snow day. You guys are deciding, this is a snow day magnified 1,000,000 times. And so I think the pressures are so great, they feel like they're left out there on their own. They go to board meetings, and if the board happens to be a divisive board, they're hearing from both sides, and they're sometimes one vote away from being told they're going to leave. So again, I think that it's important, and I think Jack Hope and the association does a good job of providing you guys support, providing you guys opportunities to get together and to talk with one another and to grow with one another, and not opportunities to sit around and complain, but an opportunity to sit around and discuss what we're dealing with and what we're facing, and how can we fight through this stuff. So yeah, it concerns me. I mean, because a school system, it takes, in my mind, it takes 3 years for a leader to kind of shape that culture around his or her vision. And so by the time you're getting settled and you're out the door, and then someone comes in and maybe shifts somewhere else. I mean, I think there are teachers out there in some school systems saying, superintendent can say what he or she wants. I was here before he or she got here, and I'll be here when she's gone.
Right.
And so succession planning is something that is lacking. But sometimes the structure of the board doesn't allow for that. When I left Hoke, I was in Hoke for almost 4 years, and an assistant superintendent followed me, and so we didn't shift. They didn't shift direction, and he stayed there for 7 years. So we really had kind of 10 years of consistent leadership. When I left Orange, Dr. Randy Bridges followed me. He was our associate superintendent, and Randy kept going the work that we had started. And so it takes, if the longevity of a superintendent is 3 years, and look at the school systems that are doing well. You see some consistency in superintendent. You don't see a lot of superintendent turnover. You see boards that respect and support their superintendent. School systems that are struggling, they're changing superintendents every 2 to 3 years. They're looking for somebody that walks on water, and someone think that they walk on water because they can't swim. It's just Who knows?
I haven't heard that one quite like that, but I might borrow that one. That's pretty
Yeah,
good
okay.
for sure.
I probably stole it.
Dr. Harrison, is there anything else that I've left off that you'd like to share with our audience at this time?
No, I just thank you for letting me come and talk about this, and thank you for the job that you do. And you mentioned in the outset that I was superintendent when Leandro was filed. Rob Leandro was in the 7th grade when that lawsuit was filed. He's now an attorney. At 1994, 1997, the Supreme Court said the General Assembly has a constitutional obligation, and here we are in 2022, and they've not met it. And they pretty much thumbed their nose at the judge just recently. So I think we have the blueprint. I think the West End put together a great model and a great program, and I know you can't fund it in 1 year, but I would love to see the General Assembly, along with the governor, with input from those of you in the field, come up with a 10-year plan to get us where we need to be.
And we certainly need to head in that direction to level this playing field that we all are under. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Dr. Harrison, if you'll hold on with me for a minute, we'll come back and close out the show.
Sure thing.
My guest next week on February 17th, 2022 is going to be Dr. Takeda LeGrand. Dr. LeGrand is the new superintendent of Scotland County Schools down in the southern part of the state of North Carolina. Dr. LeGrand has just recently celebrated her first year of completion in the superintendency. She assumed her position now right in the middle of the pandemic, is doing a tremendous job down there. So we're looking forward to the experience of interviewing Dr. LeGrand on next week. Dr. Harrison, just want to thank you very much for being my guest. Thank you for your vast knowledge and your amazing leadership and just being a good mentor to me. I'm going to be picking your brain a lot moving forward because although I've been doing this a while, I'm still looking just like everybody else to get better every day. So thank you for your insight and your wisdom, and thank you for agreeing to be on this podcast and being a part of this work that we're trying to do.
Well, it's needed work, and thanks for doing it, and thanks for letting me be part of it this afternoon or tonight.
Thank you. And to the Wright Experience audience, thank you for watching. Good evening.